Okay, now everything should be working. You are muted, it says here. Am I muted? Anyway, hello, Komal, Nata, get news. I'm 6 years old and do drugs. That's boring. Stevan, Super Donny, Yusef, everybody, hello. Let me know how the sound levels are, and I can start doing some stuff. Like every time I try to kind of like think of something what to do before these live streams start, and I just want to show you like my entire sketching session. So I sat down on the couch and I got here and I was like, okay, we have an idea, because like there's nothing I could possibly draw that is like more elegant and beautiful than this. So I'm good for the sketching. Drawing part done. So I think this is something that I will be working on. Okay, and maybe as an eraser, I want to set the same process for everything. No, cork. So the brush that I will be using today is the cork brush, and cork brush is available to all the channel members. So if you haven't yet and you are a channel member, please go and download it. I will be using that brush in this live stream. I might be using pencil later. I'm not quite sure. If I don't need to use a pencil, then I won't. But if I use a pencil later, it will be the pencil from watercolor pack that I have made. But first I'm just going to block in shapes and see where that goes. It might be that just this one brush is enough. I don't know. I don't want to set too many goals for one live stream, especially since I haven't been doing these in a while. Hello, Get News. And thanks for letting me know about the sound. That's really important. I have a second set of headphones here. I thought that I might listen to the live stream from my phone, but I don't want to take up more of my internet space or different functions, so that it can be all in this live stream, because I already have a Zoom call open, and this music is also streaming from my music licensing service provider. Okay, I think I'm just gonna like do some really quick blocking first. And to do that, I think crushing everything down might be better for now. I'm gonna do a small scale sketch. I noticed like one like super angry comment on one of my videos where I was talking about my blocking technique, and they were like, you have to work non-destructively all the time, and I'm like, no, no you don't. You really don't. When you do like a color blocking, it's really not necessary to be working non-destructively all the time, because you are probably going to paint everything over anyway, so there's like no chance of artifacts showing in the final piece, like, depending on of course how you do it, but it's not something that I'm worried about. Because when you're doing like a block-in, when you're just sketching things out, you kind of want it to be as disposable as possible, because that helps you keep the momentum going. And then the most important thing here is just to like find the ideas that are interesting and working, and well, not necessarily working, but just something that you are curious about. I think in this part we're not really actively just looking for inspiration. It's rare that those moments happen, but what you can every time do, that's why I think it's a more practical advice, is to just look for something that is interesting. And then you have something that you can build on. What are you painting? Yeah, this thing. Based on this sketch. So this is my subject. I know that that was probably not the level of detail that you were expecting with that question, but it's the level of detail that I have in my head. So I can't be more specific than that yet. Also, if somebody is looking at this live stream after it's done, I will probably have the thumbnail, the finished artwork. I will probably not have time for like all of the final color edits and stuff in this live stream, but I usually use the finished piece in the live stream thumbnails. I think it's more interesting that the live streams are about like the most important aspects about the painting, really. I have done a few like detail live streams on my membership area a few times, but even in there, I think the more valuable ones for learning purposes are the ones where I'm just like sketching out an idea and trying to have something that I could work on later. Because it's there in this phase where like all the important design decisions happen. Details are honestly really easy to do for anyone of like any skill level. Maybe the patience isn't there for everybody, but there's really no extra skill involved in doing paint details of any kind. It's something that I try to devalue with the kind of content that I make, because I don't want people to think that it's the details where the painting somehow comes together. Like that's never the case. So how is everybody doing? Are you having your summer vacation at this point? I guess for most people, this is the time when you are having vacations, when you have normal jobs. That I do sometimes miss. I sometimes miss having a normal job. But maybe like for all the wrong reasons. Like having a schedule and kind of a bit more stability. Those are valuable things to have. I think there's this like lack of hue variety currently, and it might be just because of palette just doesn't have the kind of hue variety that I require to find the right tone for what I'm looking for. But when I'm like adding hue variety, I'm very careful of not adding too much saturation. Like these aren't realistic colors, but if I was making a realistic painting, like these would already be like way too saturated already. Even when the colors are like here, it would still be too saturated. So the good thing about this cork brush is that it has this sort of like, I don't know if you can see it when I'm moving the brush, but I can kind of like blend and mix together colors quite easily. And that makes those like in-between colors and blends happen much quicker. So when I don't have a palette that I'm working out of, I'm trying to make a palette as I go here, but that helps me a lot. Also, I'm using the trick that I have made is like how to paint a faster video out of, so that when I'm using my stylus sideways, that way I can get those in-between colors really quickly. And you can add to this like to any brush that you are using. That video has the instructions. Jacob is saying, first time joining live. That's great. I know that I'm not like live super often because I'm very resistant to doing like live stream schedules. Just because I think that's a very easy way for me to burn out. How long does it take you usually to make one painting? Well, that completely depends on the painting. Sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's 2 weeks. Depends on what the piece and project is. If it has clients involved in the process, then that's usually like, I would say at least a 2 weeks project. Because there has to be, like, the sketches have to be approved, and that's something that even if I was working fast, I couldn't make that happen any faster, so I need the other person involved to give their feedback at that phase. And then I have comment rounds in most of my projects where I talk with the client about the finishing touches of the piece, and at that stage I try to be as clear as possible because there's only 2 comment rounds and I can't keep making changes until the end of time. So usually in those phases I try to be as clear as possible what is possible at that stage. And these days I try to communicate with clients that the comment rounds mean that there can't be like any like composition changes anymore to the illustration, at least for the same price, because then that is sometimes the same amount of work as doing the whole illustration. So that's why approving the sketch is important. But when I'm just painting for fun, like for example when I did that plein air painting in one of my recent videos, that was done in a day at the lake. But it was a long day, like the light definitely changed during that time. But I made like a quick palette so that I had like some sort of a reference point for what I was doing. Some kind of a block-in for this. Right now I'm not quite sure how the foreground is in perspective, and I think there's a clear lack of like decisions made about the horizon line, so I think I might cut everything here off here so that I still have a bit more room for the head, and then just have this area be a bit bigger. Okay, I think now I could do my first upscaling, and this is in uniform. And you want to make sure that you're not doing these in nearest neighbor mode. Hi Mikko, love your organic style. Please suggest us some free sky clouds process in the end too. Yeah, well, if you go to my Gumroad page, you can get my Sky Weaver brush for free, so I can recommend that. But if you want to support this channel, please leave me $1 at least when you check out. You don't have to, you can just get it for free. But those sort of things make live streams like this happen. Because if I have to do too much client work, then I won't be able to make YouTube videos. It's that simple. But I understand that not everybody is in that financial situation that they can support, and if you are tight on money, please save those for yourself. I can manage. People are asking what I'm painting. I have no idea. Hello, 12ZX12. That's a long-time channel member because they have that blue bear symbol. Buyo Cult is saying, had a big gap from painting because of lots of life things happening. Finally back to it. Painted Luffy Girl last week and working a little tea post house for a ghost this week. Teapot. That sounds fun. Do you have any tips for choosing colors for a painting? I think colors, especially when you are starting out, the one thing that I keep repeating even in my art course is that you have to have editing room. And the reason why I say that many times is because in that art course, the final editing, color editing phase, it will rely on that editing room to be able to do any of those later steps. So if at this point you go too close to the white here, or too close to the black, or too close to the full saturation, then you have no editing room, and you can't really take the colors anywhere by working them. But if you consistently make sure that you have editing room in the color choices that you make, then those are much easier to work towards something that works. They don't have to work right away, you just have to have things in the piece that you can improve on later. That is doable, but you really can't fix something if you have not planned for that sort of flexibility in the art. Okay, so now that I am making a new layer, I'm adding a small Gaussian blur to the previous one. And it makes everything look a bit terrible for this point, but this just ensures me that I will not have any artifacts later on because of this scaling that I did. And it kind of like reminds me that like you actually have to paint the whole piece. You can't just paint on the sketch itself, which is not that much work, honestly. Hey Mikko, hope you're having a fantastic day. Chlorine, yeah. Welcome to the stream, and I hope all of you are having a fantastic day today as well. I was recently on a quick trip to Stockholm, and I took a lot of reference photos there, and I have an airship idea that I really want to do based on one of the buildings there. There's this architecture style in Stockholm that is really beautiful. We have quite a lot of those buildings in that same style in Helsinki as well, but in Stockholm it's just like more spread out throughout the entire city area, so you get to kind of like see the kind of details no matter where you walk that are like really beautiful and inspiring. And it's the kind of buildings that I like to paint. Both kinds of paintings, both kinds of buildings. I mean, some of those have like this sort of like a Gothic style, and then also Jugend style, which is like Nordic Art Nouveau style, but it's a bit more whimsical, more thick, made out of more durable building elements. So I don't know, there's just something about that I really like. Get Muse, welcome to the membership. I hope you go and get this brush. By the way, you can get the brushes from community posts. There are usually links to the latest downloads, and those downloads expire in a month, so you won't be able to get the over a month old ones. So I recommend getting the last few ones. If you can't get the cork one at this moment, I will add it to this month's downloads as well, so people will be able to get it for a month onward from here, just because I really like this brush and I don't want anybody to miss it. And honestly, I haven't been able to do work with this yet, because I was kind of thinking that I could do the airship design with this brush, because it's just flexible for both details and sky painting. I was just watching this tutorial recently about YouTube features, and some channels already have this gifting thing in beta testing phase, where you can gift memberships. So I would like to do that at some point. Not really as a competition or anything, but just there are a few like members that have been like really contributing to the content of my videos and like given me really good ideas for tutorials. So it would be nice to kind of reward those with a membership, but it's still in early phases, and apparently there's like limitations to what kind of memberships can be gifted with it, but I'm sure that it will be something that I will be able to use in the future. YouTube features are just usually things that like take a really long time for them to get together, because I understand that like they have probably a lot of staff, because they have almost endless resources to develop new features, but at the same time like every problem that they have is a problem at scale, meaning that millions and millions of people are going to be interacting with whatever new features they add to their system. So this is a soft sharpen. No, soft sharp blur. I think that's the term that I used. So I added a Gaussian blur, but I only applied it on low opacity on what I'm working on. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to be using line art. If I'm going to do lines, then maybe it's better that I do them after this stream. Anyway, I'm going to be doing so strange experiments right now, so that's why I'm making a new layer. It's kind of like my safety net. You know, you can always undo things in Procreate, but if you feel like you want to try out something completely crazy, I've noticed that it's just like more mentally relaxing for me to just make a completely new layer and understand that if it doesn't work out the way that I think it will, then I can always just get rid of the layer and basically do 1,000 undos at once. I'm thinking like maybe like a lion type of a thing here, and then should we have some sort of like a ear type of a situation up top, or maybe even like flowery. I don't know. Hi pixels. Yeah, Esme is doing like all of my marketing here. Thank you. Yes, there is a secret art course happening right now. That's a temporary thing, but yes, that is now accessible. Farah Batali saying, "Hey Mikko, going through a creative block. Any advice?" First of all, let's not call it a creative block, because I'm not sure that those are real. But I do think that you are experiencing, and I'm not trying to like diminish your problems in any way, please don't misunderstand me, but there are many like different reasons why one might feel that they don't just feel like drawing or painting at the moment. Like for example, if you are very stressed or just overworked, it's perfectly normal to want to have a break. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that when it comes to art, we tend to kind of like not really talk about the breaks or just rest in general and how important that is to your art. Like all of your ideas come from your life experiences, and if you're just like grinding to study art or to make it, or if you have other things going on in your life, for example, if art is your main source of income and you need to kind of just punch through a lot of art at the moment, then it's perfectly normal that you need to have some rest. I try not to call those situations like art blocks or creative blocks, because I deserve rest as well, and someday you will see something that is like interesting that you want to explore artistically, and finding that situation where you can make art and not expect it to bring you anything else, that you can just make art because like making art feels fun, then I think it's a good time to get back to it. when not making art feels like it's more stressful than doing something creative. I know that I keep saying that like it's important to learn the skill of like how to enjoy your art, but I understand that not everybody is there and or has the kind of mental resources at the moment where that is possible. So if you are in that situation, I think it's important to deal with those other elements in your life first. Somehow I feel like some sort of like lion bearish ears would be fun for this thing. I don't remember which video it was. Like maybe it was like the 3 mistakes that art students make. I think one of those is that when you're studying art, then it's important to find your like ratio of like which amount of paintings can you allow yourself to have just like fun with painting things. Because like first of all, let's get to the very basics of like to make this like most hands-on accessible for everybody. When you start learning art, like you have absolutely zero skills of any kind, that the number one skill that you should start working immediately, like right with your very first drawings, is to listen to yourself when you are doing those studies, like in the moment when you are doing, not when the piece is done and finished and in your hard drive or somewhere, but when you are making it, when you have those moments that like this is really fun. Doesn't matter if you're good at it or not, but if you enjoy like that process, like you should find out what that is for you. Like that should be like your number one priority. And secondly, you probably already know that like when you're studying art, you need to do all of these like very technical practical drawing exercises. Like for example, like digital drawing for beginners. I think I did that video recently. I think that's a really good place to start for anybody. And Get Muse. I don't know what your current like artistic skill level currently is, but on the membership Get Muse, since you just joined the membership, I recommend doing the live lesson series on how to get started with digital drawing, because it's basically a continuation of that video, that different ways of like approaching digital drawing and doing those exercises. You can ask yourself that question, that which method fits to me naturally. But basically starting from single objects, like that's advice that I would give to anybody. And when you have that information, then you can have like some practical tools for how to go about studying art when you're like learning how to paint and how to do colors. You know that those exercises are like the technical ones about learning composition and blending, all that stuff. That is practice that is going to enhance like your base level of expressing your ideas to other people, or not just your ideas, but like the ideas of your creativity as well, which is the fun, magical part of art. But you can't be doing like those like really hard exercises all the time, because they are incredibly consuming. Like they take a lot of patience and energy and just maximum amount of your concentration to be effective at all. So you can't be doing those sort of exercises all the time. So you need to find what kind of like ratio works best for you, that when you can be doing like those exercises that improve your base skills, but you need to have like your adult moments, that you can't just be on this like grind, because the grind will last decades. So that's not a sustainable mindset to have when it comes to practice. So to balance that grind, you have your fun pieces, and those are the art projects that feel fun for you to make. That when you're making them, it doesn't matter how they turn out or what other people think of them, but you can just like do them every day of the week, and they don't consume your energy, but they give you energy. Mr. SHK art is in Stockholm is very beautiful. Yes, yes it is. Sigiri is in Stockholm, my home. Sigiri, I saw like one water tower there that I took a photo of. Like that was like super beautiful. It was like a red brick water tower that had like these sort of like Gothic elements on top. It's like super awesome. I have no idea what I'm going to do with that visual information, but yeah, you just see so many things that are amazing. For some reason I feel like I need like really dark water for some. I know it's going to look strange, but I'm just gonna go with it and adjust accordingly if it doesn't work. This is not black, but this is like dangerously close to black. Even I have to like sometimes check that I'm not pushing beyond the editing room with stuff like this. Let's just make everything bigger. Let's see. Esme is saying, if you like that style, you should definitely come to Leeuwarden. Where is that? I probably said that completely wrong. I'm sorry. Where is that town? Do you have any tips to get better at painting? Yeah, well, you need to know your goal first. I think you can't just like generally, I really don't recommend doing like a whole lot of like this, I'm just going to get better at painting in general type of practice, because it can be... Whoop, I can't do screen recording because I'm doing this stream. Damn it. Okay, I completely got off track there, and I also painted on the wrong layer, which is very common for me on live streams. Anyway, I was writing this incredibly long comment recently on somebody in my Instagram DMs. By the way, if you have a question about art, I highly recommend that you ask that question in a public forum. Unless if it's so personal of a question that you don't feel comfortable asking it in public. That's why, like, when somebody asks me a question on Instagram DMs, first of all, understand that like I can't like answer like all of them. Like I can only answer a fraction of them. But when somebody asks me a question like on a public forum, like here on YouTube comments or here in the chat, then like it's much more motivating for me to answer that question, because I know that like there's like a small chance that somebody else might read that thing. So I have sometimes written these like massive long essays on direct messages, and sometimes I feel like that's a lot of work that I'm putting for just one person to see this one answer. Not that they are not worth like that attention, but it's just like, is it a good use of my time? Anyway, so that person who was asking like about these like general art tips for improving their artwork. And I think the problem was that they were feeling really frustrated that the progress was so slow, even though they were doing all of these practical exercises, and they can see that their artwork is not at a level where they wish that it would be. So I really didn't even like go and look at their own artwork, but based on the question, I understood that they were doing like very general art practice of like practicing landscape painting and drawing trees and learning anatomy and learning how to use values and composition. It was basically like everything that comes to art. They were like doing all kinds of studies within the same month, which is really like all useful stuff. But the way that they were going about this thing, it seemed like, of course they're not seeing any progress, because like they're trying to learn everything at once. So I recommended to focus on their own goals, because there's already this vision of what you want your art to be, and when you see your finished artwork and it's not there, then there's this obviously this taste gap that is a good thing that you notice that like the artwork is not looking like it should, or that you want it to look, but you can't make it happen yet. And this is like incredibly valuable information to anybody, no matter what your skill level is, because then you have a very actionable roadmap that you can use to get there. Basically, breaking down the process of like getting to that level of technical skill that you want. You already know what areas are not working well, and then just trying to think that like, what is like the smallest thing that I can do to improve this thing? If you break down the exercises into like the smallest possible sets. Like let's say, for example, that you want to practice human anatomy, then of course like you need to learn the anatomy of every single limb and face and head and all of that stuff. But when you start from like basic proportions, just like drawing stick figures basically, and trying to get the measurements right, and then you can kind of like move forward like little by little by adding more detail or picking a certain body part or learning how to draw hands. Like just as small as you can when it's not intimidating anymore, and then you're already on that road. You're already making progress. If you want to learn how to paint landscapes, some people really hated this when I gave this advice on one of my YouTube videos, is that the way that I learned how to paint landscapes is by like going from the smallest possible single objects and then slowly expanding from there. I think the worst thing that you can do when you're starting to learn art is to pick an existing professional artist and try to recreate their artwork. I don't think that that's like useful or beneficial, and I'm not saying that nothing can be learned from there, but it's a lot of time put into something that could be a much more effective use of your time to learn faster. It's like if that's the only way that you like learning, then by all means go for it. It's not something that I recommend, but just thinking about your own goals, I think, should already be in the beginning. When people say that, like, when you're finding your own style, that you should just be yourself, like, it's not that easy. Like, it will take years and years until you can be yourself in art. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about creativity, is that when you kind of like do all the assignments that your creativity gives you, that might not be just like massive inspiration. That could just be something that you look at and think like, huh, that's interesting. And if you follow all of those like messages of what is interesting, you end up learning so much about yourself. Like, it's dumb to give beginners the advice of like, just be yourself, because like they have no idea who they are. Most of us don't. And making art is just this constant discovery of what you are like as a person, what your values are. It's not just like aesthetics, but your aesthetics communicate about your values. I do a lot of underwater drawings, and I could do like murky, realistic paintings, but I want to paint like these coral reefs from time when the seas were still alive, when we still had those coral reefs before we killed them all. I want people to understand that there's this like beauty that we don't see every day that could be there if we just like work for it. And it makes me feel like my art has some kind of purpose. But I didn't know this when I started. Like, I just thought that I like to paint trees, basically. Easy Colleagues is saying, this creature is so cute, reminds me of hamsters. What do you mean hamsters? This is a fearsome forest lion. Oh my god. This is a real beast. It's a fearsome beast. Needs to be respected. I think this could be the monster for July. I know that I missed like already like 1 month or 2, I don't know. But I'm kind of like interested in this designing monsters for each month idea, just to see where it goes. Like, I can't be doing them every month, but like if I just do a few every now and then at least in a few years, I should have a full year illustrated as monsters. I think there's something interesting there that I like. I've been seeing a lot of bunnies lately, so I hope that I can like somehow incorporate bunnies here. I know that I already probably like included bunnies in my May monster design, but bunnies are forever, who cares? It was a bad shape for a cloud, and I just tried to salvage it by painting it further. Just sometimes knowing when to give up is important. Okay, that's it. It's just one dot or a line. One dot and a line. That's it. Okay. I need to kind of work on the body, because like there's undecided things that I need to decide. Do I even want there to be like a green background? Let's try things. Okay. So what if instead of green, I have no idea how many layers I have in use. I need to check that soon. What if there's just like a wall of different foliage? It's almost like a jungle. This is definitely not Finland anymore. I don't know. If I just like made it like all around a bit darker, then maybe I could play with some sort of like fun lighting effects in the center area, just to give this fearsome beast a bit more like stage presence and drama. And some of that light is scattered on these water lily pads. Really not happy with the color, so that's something that I need to fix right away, because I just need to find the mood that I'm going for. Otherwise, I can't kind of develop the piece any further. But I think this seems more doable. Because this is an additive layer, it's washing away a lot of the saturation, so I'm just going to crunch that down on the wrong layer. I think I'm like getting to grasp like a little bit of mood here. Okay, that's something. Let's check a few of the comments. Hi Mikko, hope you're having a great day. Peirogi, hope you're having a great day as well. K-Arx is saying, what kind of jellyfish lamb bear hybrid is this? Probably that. I think your guess is as good as mine. Get Muse is saying, thank you, I'm happy to find a lot of tutorials due to the membership. Now I have a lot of work to watch, to watch and practice. Yes, I recommend also watching like the beginner to advanced videos at some point. Like those always have assignments in them as well. Is it a dandelion? This is a pretty good name. Do you live in Stockholm? No, I live in Finland. Esme is replying to me that you said that almost right, actually. It's a small old city in the north of the Netherlands. So if it's in Netherlands, then of course nobody will be able to pronounce it. And that's something that I don't feel bad about. Isn't like all names there, like especially like person names. I'm probably saying Esme's name completely wrong as well. Sorry. But isn't it like notoriously difficult language to pronounce? Please correct me if I'm wrong. When I was in Sweden, like it was kind of shocking to notice like just how terrible my Swedish is. I noticed that like just normal conversation is like pretty much impossible for me. I would need to do like months of studying to get back into a mode where I'm able to talk understandable Swedish. Luckily, Sweden is basically like Finland, that you don't need to know the local language at all if you're visiting. If you're thinking of going to Sweden, like rest assured that everybody there knows really good English. I had zero problems with anybody. Okay, then I'm going to work on this path roll or main body of this dandelion. So as I was thinking about the months, I think for July's personality, if July was a monster, it would be like a very chill creature. So therefore, I think it makes sense that all of these flowers have grown on it, and it's just cooling itself in this very shallow pond, and just basically living its best life. I think for July, it doesn't need to try to be basically the king of the jungle. Like everybody knows that July is amazing. So it's like effortlessly ruling. That was terrible. Oh my god. Yeah. Sometimes with this doodle style, I kind of like have to just let myself make silly doodles, because that's when I find the best or most fun ideas. Maybe this comes from like my old experience of making concept art, but I really enjoy the moments when I make something silly and it's not drawn well, but it's something fun and it makes me smile. Then that I really enjoy. And it used to be something that I was like too afraid to show to other people, because then I was thinking that would people see that I'm not being a professional artist or something. But now I just think that it might have the opposite effect. That somebody might think that I'm so confident that I'm showing that artwork to others that like they kind of respect it, or that they don't think that it's in any way skillfully done, but it might kind of like lower the spookiness that art and creativity have in them. When they see someone like me just doodling something silly, they might take like art a bit less seriously and just make it that you don't have to be amazing at it to enjoy it. I really don't think the skill level for something like this is that high. At least it shouldn't be. I think whatever pressure there is for making art. It's probably something that you just put on there yourself. Doing art and feeling like super stressed about it doesn't actually improve the artwork, nor make you learn or do any better art, or make other people respect you more for creating your own stuff. When you show your artwork to other people, when you're excited about it, like it's kind of like you give the permission for other people to be excited about your art as well. I think the worst kind of like captions that I see on Instagram when art students post their artwork, like the first mistake is not posting your artwork, first of all, but when they do, they apologize for the quality of the artwork or how they weren't able to have enough time to do X or Z in the piece up to their like quality standards or whatever. Like honestly, nobody reading those captions like cares at all. Just saying that like your art sucks makes it really difficult to interact with that art, because you don't always want to be in the situation where you feel like you have to kind of put their confidence back together with each comment that you give them. Like, no, I think it's fine. Then even when you're giving a compliment, you know that they don't believe what you're saying because they already stated what the official opinion of the artist is. Like, I think that's just garbage. Carolina is saying, I would love to have a monster calendar. Yes. I think that is something that should happen when I get these monsters done. Who knows, like maybe I find a different gear in my productivity and I start doing more of these live streams, and as an end result I will have more monsters of the month done than this, whatever this current rate is. Not great. I'm trying not to be like too harsh on myself about productivity, because it's like, especially the recent months, I feel like I've been working on like YouTube content like all the time, and at some point you just have to say that like I'm already doing like everything that I can, and then not everything is in your control when you're working in a channel like this. So I think it's important to kind of like have some mercy on yourself, because if you feel like you're kind of failing all the time, then at least that is not motivating for work. And I'm pretty happy about the content that I have done recently. Like especially like the hardcore stuff. I think that's fun. And those videos take a lot of time, but I really think that when people see that art course, that they will be able to get like those results out of it, because it's so like in-depth. I was just thinking about recently that like should I have made the art course so that I could like post it on Skillshare, but like Skillshare has these different requirements for the length of the video, and I wouldn't have been able to like upload some parts. It would have been kind of like scraping the surface if I had done that. If I make a Skillshare art course at some point, then I will have to be kind of like thinking about the platform requirements, like especially when it comes to length, very early on, and just kind of build it from there. But this art course that I'm doing, I really want people to like have the actual results that are promised in the beginning, and I'm pretty sure that I'm getting there. I've already seen like a lot of the student work on Instagram where people have tagged me. I can see like it's really awesome to see like the progress from some artists. Yeah, like that is really motivating to me. 2 votes already. Like, maybe I should like just make 2 copies and send them to both of you. Doing like any sort of like merge, I think the logistics are kind of terrifying. But if I make 2 copies, then like that should be doable even for me. I really admire like some of these YouTubers that like make their own stuff and like actually like physically send that in like snail mail packages. Like, I have a lot of respect for those people because like I know that I would never be able to kind of manage that with the time that I have. I think, yeah, I just respect that kind of like business a lot. Now that I have like more concrete idea of how much work is involved in all of that stuff. Okay, maybe I should work on the environment a little bit more because I'm kind of like addicted to this character already, and I think that's a good sign. It means that I like the character design already. That's good. But I do think it needs a tail of some kind. What kind though? It should like be a leaf. Yes. A leaf tail. I'm like, I don't know if you can tell, but like I'm way too proud of this design idea. Yeah. That way it looks a bit more cheerful. I'm not like super happy with the hair, but like I think some color variety is going to help with it, because this is kind of done in more of this illustration style. I think I can get away with a bit more hue variety. I'm gonna make a note of that more saturated color, but I'm going to start with way more desaturated hues. Is anybody else like doing some kind of artwork at this moment? Or drawing? Or anything creative? Good to hear that, Esme. Carolina is saying, I love Dutch, but the first times I visited the Netherlands, I wished life had subtitles so I would understand, but it's better by now. Yeah, I can understand that. I have felt that way in many places too. Yeah, I appreciate that advice, Puyo. I might consider it if I ever come to that problem. But honestly, currently I already have like 100% my hands full in making these digital products. Like my first priority right now is to finish the art course that I am making, and then I will move it to Gumroad so that it's accessible to everybody. And I don't know if this will happen before or after, but I haven't done like graphic illustrations in a really long while, and I love doing that style and I love doing it. And I have been working on my own brush set because it's really reliant on like those tools. So I'm thinking that like I would love to get back to it and make another brush set for sale that is based on like that graphic illustration style, but I want to make it flexible so that like everybody can use them as tools to kind of like do graphic illustrations in their own style. So for that reason, I've been like exploring different kinds of patterns and ideas that are not my style, but like something that would be useful to most people. I think that would be like really just a helpful thing to have for most people. And I would also probably share that with the members as well. And sometimes people have asked me about my brush sets that there should be a tutorial. I don't think there should be a tutorial on how to use brushes because basically just use one brush and make a whole painting. That's it, end of story. If you want to have like more concrete art advice, then I recommend watching any art videos on those topics. Because like most of my other brushes are very like general use that like you can just do a whole painting with one brush. But if I end up making this graphic brush set as a product, they really do have their own specific way of how they work. So I might make like a video tutorial out of that. But one thing that I haven't been like decided on yet, because I was thinking that I should just do the tutorial for free for everybody on this YouTube channel, and if they want they can use those brushes. But I don't want people to kind of like feel like they have to get the brushes to do the style, because they could use the information anyway. I just don't know. Sometimes it's hard to like guess how people react when there's like money involved in those things. Or just include the tutorial in the brush set, but I really think that the tutorial could have use even if you're not using the product itself. I think even this illustration could like quite easily be done in that graphic style. Maybe I wouldn't have this sort of like painterly effects on the character design, but I can see how like all the shapes could be simplified into graphic style. I really like working with that sort of like visual problem solving. I think it's super fun every time. It's the same reason why I like pixel art, because pixel art is like constant, like it's constant visual problem solving with how can I get this impression with the tools that are not suitable for that one thing. So you always want to have a bit more resolution and ability to add more details, but pixel art is such a, like a hard rule against having everything that you want, so that it's like really beneficial for visual problem solving skills, because you just have to figure it out somehow, and I love that. Okay, let's add darker leaves. I think I can just like give myself the permission of like just ditching the whole Finland thing and making whatever the hell I want. if I feel like it, because I just feel like some like very jungle looking big leaves would be fun. Like we don't have any trees here in Finland that would have these sort of massive trees. We do have lily pads and dark lakes and mystical July monsters. Like that stuff we do have, just not these trees. A little bit of like artistic license. I accidentally made an outline to the corner edge. And if you have seen any of my composition tutorials, you know that that is like a no-no. Vujo, are you the one who made like all of those fancy fox stickers that I recently shared on Instagram stories? I'm kind of putting together these pieces right now. Somebody who is a channel member made, I think, fox stickers. I would check it. Try not to speak with my mouth full. Just a second. By the way, I'm eating gingerbread. This is because now it's summer. And this is the only chance to buy tons of blueberries for the freezer. So it's the only time of the year when it makes sense to clean the fridge. And for that, it needs to be melted first so that it can be cleaned. And I still had like all of my Christmas gingerbread there because I bought a ton of it, and then during New Year's I went on this diet that I am still on, kind of. No, I am still on the diet. But that meant that I didn't eat any of it. So it was just there in the fridge forever, basically. And now that I am like 20 kilos lighter, I can have like one gingerbread cookie. But it's not really a cookie because I just took the dough as a frozen block and I put it into the oven. And then I just baked that thing and I set it at a low heat. So basically I had this like one massive lump of gingerbread, not cookies or anything, just like a bread made out of gingerbread. And it was pretty good, honestly. So I'm having some every day now. I am counting the calories of like even like a single one of these. Yeah. I know for some people like they stay like super slim all year round no matter what they eat. My boyfriend is like that, which is not my body type. For me, I will gain like 5 kilos as soon as I like see a croissant. I don't even need to eat it. Just seeing it will make me fatter. Oh, that brings me to the croissant idea, by the way. So, where am I going with this? People are speaking things in the chat. I will try to have some coffee and read some of the comments first. Get Muse is painting. That's fun. I'm working on concept art for a visual effects company for the first time. So scary, but will be exciting. Also a really good learning environment. Yes, so good luck with that. I'm trying to paint a face. That's definitely something out of my comfort zone. Yeah, faces are difficult. Symmetries for me is like really hard with faces. Hi from Indonesia. Hi Indonesia. Vein crossing. Puyo is saying, my favorite brush is the honey brush from the Gumroad brush pack of yours. I keep trying other ones and I always come back to honey. Yep, that is fun. By the way, this has this similar blending capabilities, the cork brush. So I recommend trying cork brush because it's very easy to use for different styles. Because like I could do like painterly style with this, and I could do graphic style with this. And it has the same feature as a honey brush, like when you use this brush like sideways, you get those low opacity brush strokes that are really fun to blend. Just saying. But if you like just using one brush, like honestly, like that's a huge like improvement into your art skills. Because when you use just one brush, you learn how the brush dynamics work. When you're making a brush stroke, you shouldn't be kind of guessing what it will look like. You should already know what the brush stroke will end up looking like before you make it. So making brush strokes, erasing, doing it again, just to get the effect that you want, I think that is a clear sign that you haven't learned the brush into your muscle memory yet. And the only way to get there is to use the same brush. I don't care if it's my brush or anyone else's, but just like using one brush to the point where you have actual control over it. So there's no like inherently like nothing great about just constantly switching brushes. That's not what I advise. That slows down the learning process and it doesn't improve the quality of your art. I think the most frustrating thing for me as an art teacher when I have, for example, concept art students, is looking at their homework and basically seeing only the brush that was used there. Or hearing an explanation. I was trying to learn how this new brush works. Like, as an art teacher, like I'm not interested in any of that stuff. Like, I have a limited amount of time to help these kids. Like, for example, the next art course that I am doing in Metropolia, as I have to learn at a faster pace if we spend even a minute of that time talking about like what kind of brushes they are using that day. Like, really don't care. I want to use that time so that I have enough available sessions to give feedback and advice on how to utilize brush strokes and what they are saying with their brush strokes so that they understand those choices that they are making. And if they have very complex patterned or textured brushes that they are using for the homework or the assignments that we are making, it's almost impossible for me to even see the brush strokes, like, let alone give actionable guidance and feedback on what to do with them, to tell their story and message and to describe their shapes and volume and to enhance their composition, all of that stuff. Like, it's undoable if they just have some 30 plus something brush pack that they are using for every piece. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that like my end goal is for them to be only using one brush for the rest of their life. That's up to them. Like, they should be making that choice. Like, that's not my business. I'm not trying to teach anybody to paint like me in any of the content that I do or in any of the teaching that I do, but I want them to have the option of like seeing the difference, of deciding how big of a role their brushstrokes play in the work that they do. And it's honestly a skill that it's not like that commonly available to learn anywhere, even if you pay good money out of it. Something that is taught in traditional art schools a lot, but digitally not that much, even though it's just as important. And especially today, like in these schools where I am teaching, like those students, they live in countries that have kind of like a high level of income. And in countries like Finland, you don't have the option of like competing with prices if you're an illustrator. You have to be competing with your own scarcity, basically. So if somebody comes to me and says that like, can you make this illustration for me for 200 euros? Because that other guy would, then I will just have to say every time immediately that like, then you should probably get that other guy, because like there's no price range around that area where I would be able to work at all. But if they want me, specifically me and my style, to have an influence on their project's design and look and mood, then I'm the only one selling that product. That's the card that I have to play. And the same goes for pretty much anybody, like who is living in most of Europe, basically. And of course, like this came up because I was talking about brushstrokes, and brushstrokes are something that are very unique to everybody. It's like your handwriting style. Even if somebody tried to replicate it, they will never be able to do it the way that you can. It's something that will already come naturally to you and will be completely unique to your own art and the way that you make things. Juan Manuel is saying, sorry, I just woke up and your knee made it look like you were seriously working out and you had a really buff arm. No such luck. I was considering, should I be wearing my shirt that doesn't have sleeves, but then I figured out that like I don't have the body for live streaming with this yet. If I get like 1 more inch into my arms, then I will use that, but for until then I will just have to wear a t-shirt no matter how hot it is in here. strangely for me, I've been really into doing like arm workouts recently. I used to be like always a big fan of like doing leg days, but recently these days like I don't know. I'd rather use my legs for running and then focus on the other areas at the gym to make that running possible, like posture and stuff. For some reason this music really makes me quiet. I don't know, which is terrible for a live stream. I don't know, I just really like slow, really long ambient tracks. Really fun to paint. Something like this. Not all music, but most music I can see it as colors. And this kind of music I always like see when I listen to it. So if I'm already painting, I'm kind of like having two visual inputs at the same time, which makes talking in English really difficult because it's like a third level of concentration that I need to multitask at the same time. I'm cleaning up some of the layers because there's now so many of these things that don't serve a purpose anymore. I know that this layer means well, but it's not doing the thing that I want it to do, so I'm getting rid of it and creating another clipping mask and just doing all of that by hand painting instead. Vane hasn't eaten gingerbread before. It's a shame. I should mail the rest of this to you if I hadn't already counted the calories, which means that I'm going to eat every single crumb on this table. Somebody was asking what was my day job before freelancing. So for 10 years, I worked making video games. And then I had this kind of like a very difficult time with it because I couldn't see myself doing the same job for another 10 years. So I honestly didn't have like a clue on what to do at that point. And honestly, the company had been in like cooperation talks so many times, and it was just like adding to the stress of it all. So I went into this like very boring and safe, just basically like very easy graphic design in an office job company where I was just basically mostly designing different buttons for a few years. Then that company fired everybody in that department during the pandemic, and at that point, instead of applying for a new job, I just thought that like I'm gonna give this freelancing a try, because it felt like the problems that were in the game company, like at that point I had already been doing like so many like game projects that I didn't feel like basically I couldn't see myself finding a place where those problems wouldn't follow me. And I have been doing so many like freelance jobs as a freelancer for different game companies as well, that I know that that wasn't just the work culture in that company, but it's like the whole industry is basically the same way. And I don't feel like fighting it anymore. And I couldn't do my own art basically either. And I am too old to just waste my life making monster designs or like some really dark shooting game anymore, because I don't feel like I was like adding a lot of value to basically life. And I felt like my art can be of more service by doing this, what I'm doing here in front of you guys right now. But what I can say is that like some of the problems that I see in video game companies is that like they're pretty homophobic, all of them, like all of them are, and they're also very sexist, incredibly sexist. So that's not something that I feel comfortable with, either of those things. That wasn't the only reason, or even the main reason why I left, but like that's something that I have zero patience for anymore. I never should have had any patience for it, to be honest. K-Arcs is saying, do you remember what you used to draw before painting landscapes and animals? Most people start by drawing anime girls or boys in the beginning, so I'm curious if you were in that too. Yes, and I still like doing character design for myself, basically. I think character design is something that I used to think that that's the only thing that I want to do. And I did a lot of that for video games, but during my work, I realized that character design is only fun when I do it for myself. Character design is not fun in a video game project environment because of the politics of it all. And I don't want to make those sort of compromises. And I don't want to do those designs, but I do think that it's fun. The only reason why I'm not doing that much of it anymore is because basically it's not the type of commissions that I want to be hired for. So when people go online and they see my portfolio or see my illustrations here or Instagram, those are the kind of jobs that people hire me for doing characters like these, which I do feel very comfortable doing for any type of projects or book illustrations or whatever marketing campaigns. Like that to me is always fun. But if they saw that my art is still mostly character designs, that's the type of that's the type of jobs that I would be getting then with that type of online presence. I know that the legs are very basic at this point, but I really don't think that these are the main visual problem that I should be solving right now, so that's why I'm kind of leaving them to be finished later. I think that the surface is almost like rock, dry gravel sand, the kind of sand that you only see during summer months. So it has this sort of dry cracks, which makes it look like scales. Hey, but Samsam is saying, no, I'm late. Yes, we already have things. You missed the messy phase. Which is honestly sometimes the fun part. But I think it's also fun when you have a character like this that you can really like. I don't know. When I make a character that I feel like I would love to have this as a pet or as a friend, then the work becomes really enjoyable for me. I think there should be some like hay in the water maybe. No? Actually not. It's not a good idea. I like this like lighter, warmer tone, but that's an adjustment layer that I'm gonna have later. I would love it if Procreate had the same kind of color picker that Photoshop has, where you can set it to color pick colors from the current layer and everything below, so that I could have my adjustments layer and just work with those on without flattening everything. I could flatten these adjustments layers right now, but it would take a ton of time, and honestly it would just be very boring to watch, and I don't want to put you guys through that. Let's see what the canvas size is. Yep, I think this is pretty. I'm gonna keep it. It's big enough. Your drawings are like heart thumbs. Thank you. I'm really happy that my art looks like thumbs. It has been my life goal for so long. I think this is an opportunity for me to kind of describe the personality of June a bit by the way that I am decorating the edge of this lake. So I'm adding a lot of like green growth because it's so hot and humid that the whole lake is almost like overgrowing. And I think that's just one way for me to communicate that July has been spending a lot of time in the same spot because it's so lazy and chill that it doesn't really need to go around traveling everywhere. Maybe you just basically woke up July from its nap and that's why it's standing up. Otherwise, like all of these leaves underneath its neck, they are looking kind of like damp or wet. Like July was submerged in this lake all this time. And maybe when July feels like it has had enough, that summer is over, it will just dive back into this lake and let other monsters take over the year from that point onwards. I think the dark border is kind of working. I like that. It was not what I was intending to do, but it's interesting, so I think I probably explore that a little bit more. I think it would be fun to have a bit more of these flowers. In smaller scale. is May saying, I love this monster already. Yeah, I have to agree. I really like this monster. Maybe because it's kind of reflecting the ideal way that I would love to spend my summer, just basically not doing a whole lot. I am meeting my friend soon, so for that reason I am going to travel, and I am looking forward to that a lot. It's the kind of friend that I only get to meet if I meet him in different parts of the world, so it's always exciting to see him. Also, he's a big reason why I quit making video games, basically. Honestly, just the conversations that I had with him made me realize that there's this whole other side of me that kind of doesn't get to express myself because all of my creative energy is being taken up by these companies that I'm working for. I think that was always like a big motivation for me. Back then I didn't know that I will do freelance, but it kind of started the process that like, I don't know what exactly I want from my life, but I'm old enough to know that like I don't want to keep doing this forever anymore. That's not to say that I don't like working on games. Like when there's a project that has like a good group of people working on it, it can be like super fun. But if these days when I like agree to like long-term projects, then I really need to kind of interview the whole team basically, like just what kind of people I'm spending time with. Because even if you make games for a decade or 3 decades, that's only just like a couple of games really. So that's a huge chunk of your life that you're spending with those people. So I think it's important to understand if it's the kind of people that you actually like to hang out with. I'm not saying like I'm the most fun person to be around either, so I think it's only natural if that goes both ways. If I'm the kind of personality that you don't like but you like my artwork, then maybe it's not a good idea to kind of hire me to work full time on a really big game project, because we are going to be spending a lot of time together and we are going to have to make really difficult choices that both of us are not going to like together, and it's important to kind of have also like some kind of friendship throughout all of that. Also, when you're making a creative project of any kind, really, especially a bigger creative project, and you're going for like some kind of a mood or tone or message in your piece, it's really important to like the people that you're working with, because you have to be able to communicate about some like really difficult topics with them, Like even if you are making something like lighthearted and cozy, it takes like a lot of courage to say what kind of things you think are cute and like what kind of elements make you feel like comfortable. You really have to be able to open up about those things. You can't just kind of paint in a vacuum and expect the work to kind of like have a cohesive tone at the end. You need to have the communication to be on the same page. Oh, wow, it's only like 2 hours. I know that like this is already quite a long live stream, but I think the time has gone like really quickly for me. I just enjoyed making this so much. I'm gonna use a lighten layer. I wanna have some like red fringe colors for the trees. I'm gonna use a lighten layer and then just see what kind of hue that could be. I think when you're working in any profession where you make a lot of content for social media, like as a freelance artist, for example, I think it's really important that you communicate in a way that you are building your own audience. I know that a lot of beginner artists think that just whatever brings you the most audience should be enough, but like you have to be kind of aware that your choices define like that group of people that you are gathering around yourself. So just popularity itself means very little if it's not the kind of group of people that you feel comfortable around. I know that a lot of content creators who have created communities that they are just not, they don't want to serve basically their audience. Like I want to make art for my channel and my membership and like on my Instagram feed because I really like the people that I get to have those conversations with. And like I said earlier, I really do have like a really long conversation sometimes on comment sections, because like those issues are interesting to me, like interesting problems to solve, and I really do want to help. But I think that's only the result of like being so selective of what kind of content I am comfortable making and what I don't want to make. When somebody tells me that like their audience expects me to do X thing only and I don't like doing that anymore, then I think in those situations like the person doing the content, like they should take responsibility for that kind of community that they have built. Maybe they don't want to continue that any further, but like then you kind of have to go through the transition phase. And there's no other like easier way to do that than to just start. And over time, people will come to expect what you give them. So it's a difficult process to go through, but I think it's important, especially if you're a freelance artist and you want to keep making that work in the future. Let's say that like you started a community that is like mostly based on like doing fan art for like some pop culture product, and then you want to start making your original characters, for example, and you have to understand that like you haven't built the audience for that. They are not there for that reason. So you have to start from basically zero to build an audience for your own original artwork in that scenario, which is, I think, the worst scenario to be in. Especially when you're already used to so many like people seeing your work. And you kind of like expect that certain level of engagement. I like doing like educational art content, but I'm very specific about like, especially like for all the members who have seen my art tutorials, like they know the difference between a Procreate tutorial and art tutorial. And I can teach art, but I'm not here to teach anyone picture making. And I think the schools that hire me to do teaching jobs or these courses in them, I think they would be right to fire me if they saw me doing like the latter kind of content online to teach people how to make pictures. Because it's not in that profession that I do. I'm not judging anybody who is doing that, but like in the profession that I do, it's not an ethical way to teach art. And it's not kind and giving, and it's not enabling the students to express themselves. And there's a really strong like pull to make certain kind of art content or art tutorials on social media that kind of makes art look easy, which is basically the picture making method. And I have just decided that like I would rather build an audience that is interested to listen and do the exercises themselves, rather than like passively kind of sell them this like illusion of what art is, because I would be like denying them of like discovering what it can be and how much it can improve their lives. Like I said, like making art is basically you get to learn more about yourself with every illustration or painting that you make. And I think self-awareness is really important for happiness. To have an idea of like, not just like what you are feeling, but like why you are feeling those feelings. Or you could do like me. You could do a year of therapy, but I think art is just cheaper. Honestly, it's cheaper than therapy. And I think it's a bit more enjoyable as well. I think the mood is slowly coming together. Slowly. I still have that editing room, which is fun. And I am going to need it, because like this piece needs a bit stronger lighting, but I think there's still enough room to go there. Abe saying, hello, I am from Sweden and my English isn't great. But I just said that everybody in Sweden speaks perfect English. Stop giving all that information here. But I just love the monster. Green is my favorite color. I bet there's nothing wrong with your English. Esme is saying, I think it also helps that you're very honest and open, true to yourself. Puyo is saying, if you're not true to yourself, you burn out quick and run out of ideas quick. I think that's really true. And I think that's true for anybody who is like trying to be some kind of a personality online. It's a lot of like work to maintain that sort of like illusion. So now I'm going to select all the areas inside the monster that aren't painted. They are still part of that original Gaussian blur layer. And the way that I'm going to do that is by painting in a selection with a very distinct color that is easy to see, that it's not part of the painting, and easy to see where I'm making this selection. So I'm going to use this selection to select everything on that bottom layer and copy it here as part of this monster. I know that it doesn't have those artifacts anymore because I blurred it after I scaled it up after the blocking phase. Just because there are small gaps here that are part of the build-up of how the colors are received, I'm also going to paint all of those areas as well. So this color, basically a selection, I'm doing it on a separate layer, and the only purpose for this layer is that I'm going to select this layer and it's going to do a selection, the shape of these pixels. Okay, so here I'm pressing select, and now I'm going to turn off this layer. I still have the selection on, and I'm going to go here below on this layer in the background and then just copy and paste. Now I have those pixels as a new layer here. I'm going to bring them into this monster. That's a lot better. What title would you give your picture? I don't know, I think Dandelion was pretty good. Or maybe something that has a word July in it. Or something descriptive. Like napping place for July. Not yet sure. Like usually the name is something that I like keep thinking about throughout the illustration, and then it might take some time before it comes. But I think that's like a fun thing to solve. I usually try to not limit myself in any way. Like no amount of words is too much for a name of a piece. I think it's kind of fun if my painting is like super long. That has a super long name. Whenever I do names like that, in my head I always have the same image that, like, let's say hypothetically that for whatever reason someday some people will think that like my illustrations are worthy of like a retrospective gallery exhibition, and I want there to be a tour guide that has to announce to the group that here we are in front of this illustration, and that the title is basically just a chapter of text that they have to memorize. I think that's fun. I think some of my favorite painting names are Ever Since That Day, the Horses Have Been Happier. That's also one of my favorite illustrations that I have ever done. There's one illustration where a bear is talking to a bird. And I don't remember the exact wording, but the name of that illustration is something like, "Excuse me, which way leads to all of the blueberries?" I especially like that it's all of the blueberries. That bear is so lazy that they don't want to just find some. Like, they want to have a shortcut to all of the blueberries. That's why I like that name. Then there are some names that are kind of like just painful to write because they are so personal illustrations. Like You Left. I think that is a really hard illustration to watch. It was a really hard illustration to make. And still a really hard illustration to talk about, apparently. Yeah. But I do think that all paintings should have a name. I think it's disrespectful, not just to your audience, but to your art, not to give it a name. But it is very disrespectful to your audience. I think having a name on your artwork is kind of like a way to invite other people into the story, or give them some like guidance or a clue to where to go with what they're seeing. If they don't want to know the name, that's also up to them, that they can just like not read it at all. But I think you should give them that chance. Vein Crossing is saying, Mikko, as a beginner, I'm still learning and struggling with using layers. Any advice you can give? Thanks. I recommend starting small. Layers, like especially when I'm using layers in these live streams, I don't want anybody to be looking at this and thinking like this is the way that it should be done. The way that I'm using layers is completely different in these live streams because it's basically just me panicking and trying to get something on this canvas so that you guys have something to watch when I'm just painting and focusing on this piece. So my layer use here is usually not very organized, and that sort of stuff is much easier to learn when you start painting with as few layers as possible. That also forces you to make real decisions about your piece, which is a really good thing for learning, like art in general. Decisions are really important, and a very common like beginner mistake is kind of like avoiding the hard decisions, and using layers as a endless safety net for everything can kind of like lull you into this way of painting when you're just like leaving all the important decisions for later, when the thing that you should always be working on is the biggest decision that is going to define the way your viewer's eye is going to move in your composition. Like what is the next biggest thing that is not fixed yet and there, and that is always the thing that you should like fix first. And to do that, you can do, for example, this, that you can turn your canvas upside down, and this will give you like more abstract way of seeing your whole illustration. I'm trying this new way of like stylizing the border to have this sort of like graphic shapes. I think there's something interesting about this. And even this, like there might be like a cleaner way to do this on a separate layer. Actually, like now that I said it, that is the way that I should do it. Yeah, so hold on. I'm going to do the selection trick again for this. I know that you could just paint these things well as a lasso tool. For layers, I think when you have a scene, it doesn't really matter what scene it is. Thinking about the order as like a space, for me, at least, it helps me to find my place for my layers in a more efficient way. So if something in the illustration is behind other objects, that is like, that means that it's very low or the lowest in layer structure as well. And when you're working on a big illustration, sometimes it's okay to just spend a few minutes like organizing your whole illustration. Like for example, for this, if I felt like the adjustment layers that I have that are affecting the colors of the entire illustration, if I feel like it's really cumbersome to paint because I need to go and switch them on, it's worth spending the few minutes to kind of merge them down with every other layer below them. And you can do that with clipping masks. I think this just makes the whole lion look a bit more like regal. It have the same kind of crown. Maybe a bit bigger flowers. I think there's something there. Esme is saying still a long way to go, but your way of teaching helps me a lot. Thank you. Really glad to hear that. What shading method would you recommend? I think this is a really good question. Members already know what I'm going to say to this, which is I'm already sorry, but this answer is not going to be a fun answer, but it's tough love. I use the lasso tool and airbrush, but I need to make smooth selections so there won't be any wonky lines, but I don't know if that's the best way to shade. Yeah, I think before shading, I think it's more important to understand color and the way that your light works in your piece and how you can describe the mood and the hue of your light source. And then when you have that kind of figured out, that really kind of like a large field to suddenly just crush into your paintings. But when you have that figured out, then I think the next step, instead of shading, should be the brushstrokes of how you express those two ideas, the light hue and the mood of your piece. That looks fancy. And then when you get more comfortable of making those like two really big decisions of like how you actually paint in your lights and shadows, then I think this question is going to be a lot less important for you. Because I'm pretty sure that in that learning process, you will figure out your way of painting where blending is only a way to reduce or paint out your own style from that expression. And there are so many things that you can add to your illustration by the way that you place those lights and shadows and the hue selections that you make, that blending is usually not going to enhance your story and your illustration the same way. Sometimes you just want to have a smooth gradient, and that's fine, but in most cases you won't. This is a free live stream, so I don't have the power to do this, and it wouldn't have like I wouldn't have any authority when I told you to stop using airbrush for shading. But if you were learning how to kind of paint your colors in, and if you were in my class, then in that situation, I would tell you to stop using airbrush or shading your pieces. But if you feel like it's fun and it's like I don't see your artwork, it might be that like you're the exception when it's like a very important part of your illustrations, then this advice might not apply to you, because like it really doesn't make sense for me to give any kind of feedback on your art when I don't see it. But I'm just saying, like, based on like just odds, I would say that the odds are that in most cases airbrushing is not the optimal way. Buyo is saying, I was very into smooth transitions and stuff like that, and it definitely takes a bit of learning curve and to break out of, but it's so much more fun, in my opinion. Yes, in my opinion as well. Smoothing the paint about. I think it's important to make the distinction here that I am not advocating for a certain kind of style, but when you're learning to paint, those soft edges blend in, not just your different surfaces and your hue transitions together, but like they hide all of your mistakes in your piece. That doesn't mean that like your painting is going to look better as an end result when you just have smooth transitions. But when you're in that phase, when you just like can't figure out how to fix your painting, when it's not looking like the way that it should, it's really hard for the eye to grasp onto those smooth surfaces. So it makes hunting for elements to fix like next to impossible, really. So for example, when you're trying to do a composition for a landscape that has clouds in it, if you just airbrush in very soft and fluffy clouds, you haven't made any like important composition mistakes or composition decisions yet. There's a Freudian slip. You haven't made any composition mistakes yet. I think that's important, because when you make those composition mistakes, and you will, because like I do every single time, then at least you can like very distinctly see it, because they have hard edges that are easy to kind of like see, that where like, this line is not kind of like directing the eye to where I want to direct the eye of my viewers, or it's not really focusing the attention to the element that is important to the story in my illustration. Then you can see how those lines are moving the eye in your piece, and then you can kind of tell if it's a mistake or not. But if you just like have soft airbrushing everywhere, you're not really leading the eye anywhere, and it's very difficult for the viewer to watch when they have to make all of the decisions of like where to hunt for clues on like what is this illustration about. Think about it like a poster that has 3 reads, which I think is a really good main kind of like skeleton for poster design. That first you want to have the main subject. Let's say like for example a concert poster. This artist, that should be like the main thing that is taking up most of the poster. What is happening, like you would say that like this artist is performing in this venue. The venue is not as important, so it's on a text on the lower half of the picture, and then maybe when would be like underneath that text in an even smaller font, like small times and schedule or even ticket prices. That is not the main read, that is the third read. So think, what are your 3 reads in your illustration? And that's where you want to guide your viewers, so they can have an easier time looking at your illustration. I think there's like one area that I haven't quite decided yet, and it's like these like middle ground bluish shades that are happening here. I think those need a bit more structure. By the way, like this is almost impossible for me to like decide where the layer is and watch the illustration back upside down. It just completely messes up my sense of direction, so I need to turn illustration around for that. So I'm basically just working on the composition, and everything else is kind of like just abstract shades, because it's upside down. That way I know that I can have, for example, full contrast in these areas. What is that thing? Like this whole blob, but to have more structure for it. And here. there's so many lines here crossing at the same time. So I'm just like adding this background shape to have more clarity for all of these shapes. Basically, it's just doing a billboard for all of these elements to read. And I'm going to add another ridiculously round hill on the edge here that is going to eat away the contrast of those corners because it's not important. And that's one way for me to kind of direct the eye back into this illustration. Okay. Penguin is saying, how long have you been drawing for? I can't help but compare myself to other people and it makes me feel down because I only just started. Yes, well, I think you basically answered your own question, which is stop comparing yourself to other people. You might feel depressed because you feel that you will never be able to paint like them, and the honest truth is that like you won't ever be able to paint like anyone else except you, and that's the person that you should be focusing on, because the kind of illustrations that you will be able to make in the future and already are making, like nobody else can like replace that what you can do, and we won't have those ideas that you can express us. And that's why your art is important, not because you're going to be like a very super skilled craftsman and you can draw like nobody else. We really don't care about your skill at the end of the day that much. It's important that you develop a level of skill where you're able to express your ideas, but that at the end of the day, it's those ideas that people will remember. They might momentarily be impressed by your skills, but it's not something that is going to like leave a lasting impression or broaden anyone's horizons about the world. And that's something that will come with time. But the importance of your art, it will always be there. It's always important that we get to see your side of things. Because art, not just visual art, but all art has this power of like giving us more empathy for like different situations and different kinds of people and like the environment. When we see the beauty of nature in some illustration, we might come to value nature a little bit more. And when we're comparing our art with other artists, we're kind of like missing the point of like what's fun about art in the first place. Because you get to learn new things yourself when you are painting and enjoy that time with creativity. But when you're just time traveling in the future and thinking about how other people might react to your art, I think that's kind of, I understand where that is coming from, and I'm not saying that I wasn't there. Of course, we are all there at some point, multiple times in our lives, but we need to appreciate what creativity is giving us, like those ideas that we can make, that only we are able to hear and listen and make those things happen. Because you don't know what kind of value your art can have to other people, even if it doesn't have value to you. you will need to kind of give it the respect that it deserves and the time that it deserves. And I think when we understand how important art is in like this bigger culture, in this bigger picture when it comes to culture and our development as a human race, we understand that it's not about us. It never really was about us. Like, we're not that important in this process. We are just like small cogs in this big machine. But that doesn't mean that the work isn't important. It's incredibly important and valuable in ways that you will probably not even like. It might be that you will never know the kind of impact that your art has on other people. But when you make enough art, you will start seeing those examples, and you can like only kind of like imagine how much of that impact you are having on the world without even knowing it. This is also why it's important to publish your art. It's not just about getting feedback and like building your online community. It's about your responsibility as an artist. Like, basically, it's your duty to share that message, because your art can be a gift to somebody else. It can be like very important, and I don't think you should be the one shutting that message down. Because it might be that like this piece of illustration that you're working on that you don't feel like that excited about, it might be that like it's not about you. It might be important to someone else. I love this track because it's just very addictive sounds in this. Okay, I think I should be like done soon-ish. I think the main idea is there. I think the visual impact is there. I definitely have some work to do with the colors, but I have so many flat surfaces that this is going to be really fun to do color editing. I haven't done a color editing live stream in a while, so I might do that in a membership coffee stream session, coffee live stream session. But I was thinking about this like other idea for because I do these like monthly coffee sessions, that it would be fun to do like a coffee live stream session where we're doing like a live lesson at the same time, and then I would have like a croissant that I get to paint, but then everybody would have to have a croissant on the table to do the live lesson if they want to join that. And of course you get to eat the croissant afterwards, but it would be a very challenging and difficult surface to paint. Therefore I think it would be a perfect for the live lesson series of live streams. And then there are like several like painting techniques, but mostly I'm trying to just come up with an excuse where everybody can get a croissant and paint it live. That would be fun. Basically the coffee sessions are kind of open format, so I think it's fun to make them. I think last time when I did coffee session, I was doing that bird illustration. That started out as a live stream. Okay, but you see what I'm trying to do here, so I'm probably going to like stylize the border with these sort of like graphic lines to make it more decorative. There's this like fauvism element in this style of this piece, which I'm really kind of fond of. I think there's going to be a paper texture on top of this, because I think that will just keep the style really well, but it's going to be subtle. Anyway, thank you for joining this live stream. Well, did I just undo what I did? Yes. Input like low opacity. Also, sorry for like the outside noises, because it's so hot in here. I'm like definitely going to take a shower after this. It's so hot. And the electricity prices are like through the roof here currently, so I need to like shut down my computers after this live stream is over. But I'm gonna read a few of the comments if there are any questions that you want me to answer. While I was drawing, I looked back at your stream, and when I saw that the entire painting went upside down, I went, Mikko, what have you done? And then I realized you just rotated your canvas. Yeah, rotating your canvas and flipping your canvas horizontally, very beneficial for composition stuff. I'm sure that like when I rotate the canvas horizontally, I will see like many anatomy things that I can do with the character still, but it's very valuable, so that's why you don't want to keep constantly flipping your canvas horizontally, because that trick will lose its value if you do it too often. But like everything on the character is on its own separate layer, so doing any kind of like symmetry fixes to it is going to be quite easy. I think I could like show that right now. It's important when you flip your canvas to have like a note layer where you can make really quick notes of all the things that in your composition or anatomy that you can fix quickly, because you are going to lose seeing those things that can be fixed after a few minutes. I'm gonna go canvas horizontal and then just use this thing. So here I need to develop this neck so it's like closer tied to this body here. And I think this is like very quirky anatomy. Maybe I could like bring in the butt a little bit to here. have this leg here, a bit more to the left, and then just build in body here. Like do some of that right now so that you can see it. You can see that the tail is placed very carefully in one area. I think I'm also going to nudge everything to the right a little bit. That I can do by warp tool. So first, I'm going to grab this area. Oh. Warp is really useful for these sort of situations. I'm lucky I didn't spend that much time doing that leg in the first place. Easy fix. And then the butt. I'm gonna like grab a slice of this monster booty here. Add this other leg to the section as well. Actually, it's on a different layer, so this probably doesn't work. Right. And do the same for the leg. Layer is here. And the nodes are important to be so distracting that you really want to fix them as quickly as possible. Sometimes I use actually like physical nodes, meaning that I have like mini post-it notes that I will just quickly slap all over the screen. I think that's a really good way to force yourself to like fix the most pressing matters first. And then the face nudge. I'm gonna do that by first selecting the face. And then illuminate. It's a very small change, but I think it helps with the readability. Then I'm gonna get this. This splicing things will take some time to just like manually paint over, but you get the process. Yes, it looks much chunkier. It's like a fearsome beast. July. Hear me roar, or battle over to the next pond, because this one is getting a bit too hot and humid. It definitely has that like essence of my dog Vivi. Okay, sorry for this like false finish. Like this is probably like the worst kind of live streaming, like for retention, when you say that like you're going to end the live stream and then you end up doing like the biggest changes later. But anyway, thanks for sticking to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope that you guys got some work done as well, and I'll talk to you guys in the comments. Actually, this is the other button that I should be pressing. The worst live stream ends, like on YouTube. Like that's this channel's thing. Bye.